Welcome to the Eagle Valley Model Railroad. So if the world's not flat, why is my layout? Let's add some Let's add some heels.
So in this video here, we're going to take this area of the layout and we're going to add us some heels. We're first going to take us a piece of foam and just get a rough shape so it fits in the area. And then we're just going to start hacking away at it and forming the shape that we want out of this. And this takes a little bit of time, and just there's no correct or wrong way to do it. Cut it down till you get the shape that you want and it fits in the area that you want it to fit in. Continue to look at the area, continue to work the piece, ensure that your cars are going to go by and not hit anything. We're going to add a little piece right here, and we're just trying to shape the foam so it all flows pretty good. We're going to pin these two pieces together and put us a little foam adhesive onto it so it stays. And here's another angle, and again, just make sure your cars will go through without hitting anything. We've done a little bit of sanding to this to get it to this place. This isn't by any means the final product, but it's getting close. To finish it off, we're going to adhere it to the layout using a foam friendly adhesive, and we're just going to do it like we laid the foam down for the table, and just get it in place and use some T-pins to hold it while it dries. The T-pins do a really good job of holding it in place. I actually had to pull this into the corner a little bit, and it held it exactly where I wanted it to. This worked out really, really well. I usually give it about a day or so to dry, and it does pretty good. So like I say, let it dry, and we're going to just remove the pins and get ready to do some finalized work on this area as far as shaping it. And I'm using a 60 grit sandpaper and 150 grit sandpaper, and just finishing it up, getting it where I want it, how I want it. Sanding down the ridges and the corners, and just smoothing it around to make it look more of a heel area. So we're going to prep this for some plaster, and just to fill in the gaps. We're going to protect the roadbed and the track, and we're just using some cheap masking tape, and just doing our best to cover the area, not really paying a whole lot of particular attention to getting everything covered, and making sure our end over here we don't run off. What we're going to do is, with the plaster Paris, we're going to start it off pretty runny. You can tell it's really, really runny. It's hardly setting, and the purpose behind that was so it would get into the little cracks and crevices and go up under the foam. Anywhere that it wasn't perfectly sitting, like right here on this edge of the fascia, I didn't want that gap sitting there with stuff just to drop in. So we're bringing the heel area, or the landscape, out to the very edge of the fascia in this. So I needed it to be somewhat runny. As we go along and time passes in this video, you can see how it thickens up. And I do this a little messier than most folks. I usually get my hands involved with this. This is a little bit too runny right now to do that. We will do that later on. I'm actually going to be working this corner and the next little piece across the road. So you'll see me disappear every once in a while. But I'm just trying to do both sections at the same time. Starting to thicken up a little bit. You can see the scraper is actually moving it around pretty good. And again, I'm just trying to fill in those little gaps to make it a better transition from the existing layout to the new piece of the hill here. Again, I'm going back and stirring it up just a little bit, as you can tell. And now it's getting more of a consistency that we're used to seeing with plaster of Paris. Still got some working time on this, so I'm kind of letting it dry. That's really not a nice looking shape at the moment. But again, it's got a lot of water into it. I mixed it up pretty thin, so it's got a little bit longer dry time than usual. And like I said, I do a little bit messier than some folks. I actually get my hands in here. You can extend the working time of your plaster of Paris like this. And I keep a bucket of water. It's out of camera right now, but you can just dip your hand in that bucket and it'll actually reactivate that plaster of Paris on the surface. So any kind of bumps or knots that wind up drying and you don't like, just dip your hand in a little bit of water and start rubbing on it. It'll reactivate that plaster and you can get it just absolutely as smooth as you like. You see these bumps and ridges in this. When we come back to it, you'll see it gets real shiny. That's where I've put my hand in some water and it reactivates. You see it reactivates that plaster, and you can get it, like I said, you can form it and shape it and get it as smooth as you want it to. And it just, I really like the way this technique comes out and the way it looks when it's all said and done. To me, it just makes for a cleaner look. That's what this second section looks like that I was working on. It's dried. We let it dry for a few days. Basically to get the cold out of it. You can tell when you use plaster of Paris, it's got a cold, damp feeling to it. As soon as that's out of it and it's bright white, it's dry to the touch, and it can be sanded and painted, and that's what we're doing here. We're just doing a final go over of the area and sanding it down and getting it just exactly like we want it. Any imperfections that we had in the molding process, we get rid of those at that time. Clean it up and get ready for paint. And for my base coat, I'm just going with my typical brown, flat brown, earth tone paint that I've used for the whole layout since the beginning. To me, it's just a good base coat to work off of. Plus down here in Georgia, if you dig deep enough, it somewhat looks like that stuff if you can get through the clay. This paint does a good job. It's nothing special. Like I said, it's just a flat, and it's a pint, and I've used this for the whole layout, the mountain. Anytime I do any repair work, any redos or whatever, and this paint's lasted me a while, and I believe it's going to continue to last me for a good while. You barely use it when you paint stuff like this. I'll save y'all the headache from having to watch me paint this other section. But that's pretty much it right there, guys. Just get it close to your ballast. If you do get it on your ballast, you can throw a little extra down. We're going to put some more scenery on this eventually, but this is what it looks like with just the brown on it. It'll stay in this state for a while until we get some grass and some clay on it and touch up the ballast piece of it. But that's pretty much us adding some topography to the layout and taking it from the flat world that it was sitting on. Thanks for watching. Remember, like, share, subscribe, and until next time, happy modeling.